and Light Art today to host the virtual meeting number 26 of the CSI BIM practice group. We had a little hiatus since our last meeting back in November, but we're up and running again now and ready to take off on a new year. So we were just commenting that couldn't believe we'd done. This is the 26th edition of this session, but we're proud to say that we've been at it for a while, relatively speaking, I should say. So here is our agenda for today.
I wondered how you get speakerphone.
Let me just say a few housekeeping things. That one, everyone on the call except for the panelists are in listen-only mode, so your microphones are muted. We do welcome you to ask questions, though, anytime and join create or join into a conversation. I'm getting a little conflict from someone who has an open microphone. But we do encourage you to speak up. You can do that by raising your hand, and we will unmute you so that you can speak, or you can type in a message in the chat bar, and we will ask your question for you. So please pipe up anytime over the course of the meeting. We're going to have a presentation today from the leader of this group, and I'm going to turn it over to him right now to say a few things to you, and we'll be off and running. Bob?
Okay, thanks everybody for listening in today. I guess everybody knows who I am. I'm Bob Wygand. I've been leading the group for the last 2 years, and before I get started, I just wanted to make the call again. We are looking for new leadership. I'm sort of starting to work on some, new BIM initiatives, and I kind of have a lot on my plate. So we're looking for anybody who's interested in coming forward with some ideas and who knows some people that that may want to lead the group for the next round. So if anybody has any ideas or is interested in doing so, please let us know, and we can look into it and give it a shot. Have you try presenting, and if you like doing it, we'll go from there. But in the meantime, Roger, have you sent the change the presenter to me yet, or?
Not yet, Bob, but I will do it right now.
Okay, let me actually doing it as we speak.
I guess it's done for me. Good.
Okay. Well, let me just get my presentation up, and
I guess, Bob, we'll have a little time at the end to talk about the next few meetings and where we're going. But
okay.
Maybe you'll tie that together with what we've been doing when you get started. Right?
Sure. Well, what I wanted to kind of talk about is knowledge management, going into it with a little bit more depth of what the knowledge manager actually does, than I had in the previous time I spoke about this. I'm calling this kind of knowledge management. It's everything and the kitchen sink, because this individual really has the ability and the responsibilities of a lot of aspects of the project. And, it's looking at this in terms of the concepts of what can this and should this person do. Because the knowledge manager is really an extension of the specifier as we know them today. And that's what makes the specifier the most relevant person in the project as BIM grows and as more information gets added into the project. Now, to start, if we think about what specifications are, today it has sort of been demoted to almost a thankless job. And it's one of those things that a lot of people that are very good at doing it do very well. And at the same time, it's a task, the actual writing aspect of it is becoming diminished by tools that will do it automatically. So, big paper piles like this, you see, are not quite what you may see tomorrow.
Bob,
yes.
can I just interject one thing?
Mm-hmm.
To kind of add to what you're saying, that the last few sessions we have been, we were looking at what some of the BIM authoring tools are doing and how they're, to some extent, changing the way information is used and are part of what is contributing to the diminishment of this pile of paper, I think you might agree. And so where Bob's going today is kind of picking up on that and starting to talk about how the knowledge manager works with these different kinds of tools. And we're going to continue with that theme going forward with some other tool providers. So,
right, yeah.
Just wanted to make that connection as we got started.
Sure, sure. No, and that's where I was headed with this is over the next few months we're going to start looking at the different BIM content providers and what each one of them are doing. If you think about BIM content as it relates to specifications, it's actually a one-to-one correlation between the components that go into the model and the information that's found in a specification. So really, BIM content is an extension of a specification. It's just a graphical version of it. So as specifications today, it's a lot of paper. It's a lot of editing and text work. But as we move into the future and we look at building information modeling, the knowledge manager really is an acting specifier that is an administrator of the design team, the owner's team, procurement, and construction, where they're working between all of these parts to facilitate the project. So, the question comes up.
Bob?
Yeah.
Bob, sorry, but for some reason, at least for me, you're breaking up a little bit, like the microphone or something. I don't know. It's like you're almost underwater a little bit.
Oh,
that's a problem for anybody else.
Okay. Yeah,
you did something and it was a lot clearer.
I don't really know. I mean, it might be. I have no idea what it is. I'm on voice over IP, so it may be okay. But I'm getting people saying that they can hear clearly.
Other people are saying they can hear clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
sorry.
Anyway, the knowledge manager is sort of the hub of all these different parts of the project, where they're acting as an administrator. So it really raises the question: who does this? Who's the responsible individual? I mean, who is this individual responsible for, or responsible to? Is it a function of the owner? Is it a function of the architect? Is it a function of the contractor? And we'll get into that in a little bit. But it really does raise the question that perhaps this individual should be a responsibility of not the architect, but of the owner. What is knowledge management? It's the supply, maintenance, and delivery of information on a project. It's somebody who is sitting in the middle and facilitating and administering and in some cases arbitrating issues that happen within the project. So they have some core responsibilities. The two that are highlighted in red are the ones that I'm going to focus on today, which are the provision of BIM content, the components and the assemblies that go into the project, and the addition and the maintenance of the attributes, which are the product data and the project information. I call it product data, not element data or component data, because in a real construction project, everything is built with real-world products, not theoretical products that haven't been selected yet. So at the end of the day, it's an actual product that's going into a project. And then some other responsibilities are product and system selection assistance, which is the act of specifying, not the actual documentation, but the selection of the products and systems that are going to go into the project. the creation of the project manual itself, which is the spec writing, and their ability to provide bid review assistance. So BIM content, real quick. We've all kind of gone through these ad nauseum, so I'm going to just sort of go through what basic BIM content is. I mean, there's three basic core components. There's materials, objects, and assemblies, and they all relate to each other in different ways, where the materials will go into objects and materials will go into assemblies to make the model itself work as it's supposed to. So materials, they're colors and finishes, but they also carry properties about what the material is, what the physical properties are, how well that property or that material performs, the sustainability characteristics, does it, can it contribute to lead credit, and application information like how many square feet per gallon, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's information that's relevant to the appearance and behavior. These are the basic building blocks of a project. Everything with materials and moves forward from there. It's the visual appearance. When you're doing high-end visualization, you want to make sure that the materials themselves carry the appropriate information so that no additional work needs to be done in order to get a good, clear visualization, and the performance information in order to analyze the model. Importantly, is the assemblies rely on these materials in order to do callouts and annotations, as well as convey the owner's requests and preferences. Next is components. These are the standalone objects. Whether you're talking about a light fixture, a table, heating HVAC, a door, casework, or a piece of door hardware, we're really all talking about the same thing. It's the standalone objects that make up almost the secondary aspects of the model. The shape is derived from the assemblies that make up the walls, the floors, and the roofs. The components go in and flesh out that model and create the openings and fixtures and fittings. I do have a question that I wanted to field. How does the knowledge manager match with a project information manager per VA as a function of program management? It's functionally the same thing. Except it's an enhanced role where the individual would also take on some additional responsibilities of sourcing the content. I'm not entirely clear about what a project information manager does, but it sounds like it's a very similar, if not the same, role. Only in more of a commercial aspect than a governmental. So anyway, back to the components. We're talking about information that's relevant to the products themselves: performance and consumption, lifespan, identification, and the properties that apply to the design and selection criteria. Not just what the product is, but why it was selected. It's important to have information that can qualify and quantify what's in the project, document what it is, why it was selected, and create a reference standard for facility management so that if and when a product needs to be replaced, a digital owner's manual of an as-built model can show exactly what's in there and the attributes for it. So when replacement is necessary, it can be done effectively. And then we get into the assemblies. The walls, floors, and roofs are the core assemblies. We also have stairs and railings and ceilings and various systems that go into the project. But these three are really the core that outline what the shape of a project is. The walls define the vertical surfaces. Floors are the interior horizontal, and the roofs are the exterior horizontal or sloped surfaces that define the project. Each one of these assemblies is made up of a series of materials. So as these materials go into the project, they can be taken back out for square footage, for cost estimation, for analysis, so you know exactly what's in there and can make changes effectively and quickly by creating a series of necessary assemblies so that you don't have to change everything just to change one material. So if you have a floor that has VCT, composite tile versus carpet, but the slab is the same, you can just take the same floor, copy it, and just add carpet to it rather than having the tile. And these assemblies carry information about the assembly as a whole. So we're talking about, we want to know what's all about the sandwich, not the ham that's in it. So we're looking at the big picture, the system design, considerations that rely on an entire assembly, UL fire ratings, factory mutual, TCNA. All of these look at the entire assembly for their construction. Their performance requirements. Is it, their thermal performance of the entire wall, fire performance of it, acoustical performance. These all take into consideration each one of the components and build it into a whole. And then it also discusses owner preference. So if there are specific finishes or specific colors, specific brands that need to go into it, these are noted in the assemblies. Assemblies also carry behavioral information. So if it's a structural wall versus a partition, the software can differentiate between the two and throw up errors if you try to put structural members into a non-structural wall. Is it interior versus exterior? Fire ratings again and thermal are also added. We have another question. Are notes shown at BIM assemblies what is being proposed in lieu of keyed notes? Yes, I mean that's one way of doing it. I mean these are section details that we're looking at that would carry notes about the individual materials. You have the ability to toggle keynotes for URL links, for textual notes, and really add any pieces of information to the drawings that you want. Each slide seems to be cut off at the bottom. Wow. Is anybody, Roger, are you seeing the slides being cut off at the bottom? Hello?
Bob, I can't speak for Roger, but this is Rob. Yeah, I see about half of the word fire ratings. Like it almost is parallel with the hash mark before it is where it cuts off.
Swell. Well, I hope this doesn't continue. I'll do my best to figure it out, but I'm not quite sure what's going on. In any event, how content interacts, this is the core here is you have materials which go into objects and assemblies, and the objects and assemblies go into the project. The materials themselves are loaded into the project, but they're not really placed within the project themselves. They need to really be a part of something else. And then you have data management. The creation and the formatting of these schedules allow a knowledge manager would create a series of schedules that are essentially templates that can be used over and over. So you assign specific fields for specific schedules, create and maintain these schedules throughout the project, and then prepare specifications and associated output documents as well. A function of the knowledge manager really should be the creation of specifications as well. Only because the data is so closely related. You can create an individual that can do multiple tasks using the same information without the risk of losing or anything getting lost in translation. Okay, it looks like a lot of this is getting cut off. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this. Can everybody see this? Okay. Okay, Rob, can you see everything on my screen okay? Oops.
I see, well, now it's kind of jumping. Okay. It appears that I'm seeing, yeah, we're seeing the entire slide there based on the preview scene.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna have to go through it this way then, just to make sure that everybody can see it. So you're creating these schedules that allow you to allow the information to be managed. once you get into the CD phase, you're responsible for preparing specifications and potentially new output documents. You're developing specifications based on the model or models, the information that's put in, and you're also acting as a librarian. So you can provide access to data sheets, performance information, installation requirements, and any other additional reference documents that may be necessary downstream. There's managing a series of informational links that are necessary throughout the project cycle. So if somebody needs information about code, or testing information, a link to specification information that may be housed on a project website, warranty documentation. All of this is a series of links that can be built in so that people can use the model actively as they're working through the project. Now, next is organizing the model and sorting model information. During schematic design, you can take all this information and sort it based on uniformat for costing information. You basically have the ability to look at every single component in the model and determine how many square feet, how many lineal feet, how many components are in there, and do quick cost estimation. The information can be used by third-party software for costing, or it can be plugged into external databases for costing. There's really no end to how it can be done. It's just a matter of organizing the information in using methods that specifiers have been proficient in for years. And then there's what I call surgical BIM management, and that's the ability to manipulate the information inside of the model without actually disturbing the graphics. Using these schedules that are created, you can go in and change information about products and assemblies and update the information without actually having to determine or without having to change the graphics or really know a heck of a lot. Know a heck of a lot about the software. I have a couple of questions. Are naming conventions and spelling of materials critical for accurate linkages? Yes. Well, yes. It needs to be done, within your project team, so that everybody's talking about the same thing. So if you call it wood_cherry and somebody calls it cherry wood, you might have some discrepancies, and you also can have doubled or missed components in a project. Okay, and it looks like somebody had made a mention that if you make the window in PowerPoint full screen, you can see all of the text. And then another question is, if the CM is installing products into the construction, where would you see an information manager interacting with the CM BIM manager? Would the CM BIM manager be the one actually inserting the product data of what was actually installed into the model? And the answer to that is yes. And that's why this person really, it seems to me to be a function of the owner, so that they can work with not just the architect but with the contractor to facilitate this process happening. And it's also a single individual that makes sure that all this information is actually done. You have some responsibility and some responsibility that can be defined to a specific person. And what makes a knowledge manager? A knowledge manager is responsible for doing a lot of different things. So you need to get somebody who knows a lot about a lot of different things, and they need to understand all of the aspects of design implementation processes. So, somebody who's a CDT, CCS, CCA, CCPR, these are starting points for people that can take what they know already and leverage that knowledge by getting some basic knowledge about the software and put it together. So this person can be a specifier, or should be a specifier, a draftsman, a librarian, and an administrator, an arbitrator. Because they're going to need to develop specifications, assist in selecting products, provide BIM content throughout the project, modify that content throughout the project. Post-bid, they're going to need to modify it as well, and they're going to need to understand the relationships between information standards and formats. In addition, because they're right in the middle, there's going to be situations where there's going to be discrepancies between contractor and owner, and contractor and architect and owner, and this person really needs to be able to step up and stand in the middle and look at these different things and say, yes, this is what I'm capable of doing. And I've had a couple people asking if this can be available as a PDF, and yes, I will make this presentation available. I guess, Rob, we should be able to post this up on the site, right?
Yep, absolutely. We'll be posting recording notes, as well as, if you have any slides you can provide us.
Absolutely. As soon as I'm done, I'll PDF this and send it over to you to put up.
That's great. Thank you.
So as as we go into it, it goes into the contractual responsibilities of the knowledge manager. 3 ways you could do it. 1, you're responsible to the architect. Problem with that is that it starts at schematic design and it ends at bidding. You're really not going to get much more than that. If the person's responsible to the contractor, it's going to start at construction and end at construction. There's not much that's going to happen there. But if they're responsible to the owner, you're basically creating a CMA plus a specifier in order to create a knowledge manager. So you take the role of the specifier out of the purview of the architect, and you put it more under the owner, because now it's full documentation from cradle to grave. So as the project progresses, everything stays consistent through a single entity, and it can actually start prior to construction and prior to design, and go all the way through facilities management. So they can basically they can program a facilities management system for the owner. It'll also allow for more accurate final deliverables, like an as-built BIM, and they can act as the project administrator throughout the life cycle. So let's talk about what a knowledge manager does. I mean, I gave some quickies into there, but I want to go into a bit more depth here about the different phases and what exactly this person is going to do at these phases. So let's start at schematic design. This person would walk out, interview an architect, and determine what basic components they're going to need in order to get the project rolling. We're talking about walls, floors, and roofs, and basic openings, one for a window and one for a floor to ceiling. As the design develops, this person's going to modify the components to suit as design decisions are made. Now, what they can also do is export information in terms of tabular specifications to give progress reports of this is where it stands at this point in design development. So you can look at it and say, all right, these decisions were made and these decisions still need to be made. As it gets into the CD phase, they harmonize the information and create specs based on the model. They can either use the model information or use it as a reference in order to create their text documents. After the CD phase, it goes into bidding. And this BIM can actually be, you could take a snapshot of the model as it stands at bid and use all of the components in there and the data as a control, so you can select additional manufacturers as an apples to apples. So you say, all right, this window has this U factor, it has to have this U factor solar heat gain, and it has to meet Energy Star in this part of the country. Do these other manufacturers meet that criteria? And then they'll update the BIM as necessary to reflect the actual product selections post-bid. So after bid, construction starts happening, and it's inevitable that that changes are going to be made. So as those changes are made, in changes to the information, not the graphics. I mean, the graphics still really need to be in the hands of the architect, because you don't want to be noodling around with somebody else's graphics. All that's going to do is throw dirt in the water. You may make unforeseen changes, and you're designed to act as an administrator, not as an architect. So you'd be updating the information that's in the model and proposing changes to the graphics that may have come from the contractor. After that, post-construction, when the complete model is done, you organize it so it's a true as-built. All of the design and construction that has happened is noted and noted effectively and accurately, and passed off to the facility manager. Two questions. One recommendation is to revise the slides to reference level of detail, the AIA level of detail, rather than the design phases. I'd like to get some feedback from others, if anybody has any feedback on that, because it's an interesting thought. The thing I see about LOD, though, is that the LOD is really related to the phases, in that what the knowledge manager is actually doing is related to the different responsibilities in different points in a project. So I think what you may want to do is say that during schematic design, you would create the model at LOD 100, or the information level at LOD 100, at DD at LOD 2 and 300, at CD it's at 400, and at FM it's going to be at 500. And then the question also came up, is a knowledge manager a registered professional? Well, I would suppose they would need to be a registered professional the same way a specifier is a registered professional, where a CCS is a registered professional under CSI. Now, just because somebody is a specifier doesn't necessarily mean that they're an architect, and just because somebody is a knowledge manager doesn't necessarily mean they're an architect either. So I don't see it as a necessity, but I think in order for somebody to be proficient at the job and be hired to do it, they would need to prove that they're proficient in doing all of these areas. Another piece of feedback: LOD is not a clean match. There is an overlap. You could reference the LODs as applicable at each phase, or create a completely separate side. And I agree with Horatio on that. That it's sort of breaking it up that way. So as we get into the different phases, let's talk about schematic design. You go in, you interview the architect, and decide what you need. You're formatting and BIMing creating the BIM elements that are necessary for the design team so they can start their development. So you're doing your basic walls, floors, roofs, openings, and then each one of those components would carry attributes but not have values. So you'd say value, but it would be blank because you don't know what it is. And what that does is it prepares this model for its journey, because it's gonna go a long way before the job is done. So let's look at an opening during schematic design. You're going to see this throughout the next several slides, and watch it grow. Now, during schematic design, all you know is that it's an opening, and it's 080000. You probably have it listed as uniformat as well, but in schematic, you'd really organize the information by usage rather than by component. What is it used for? This is a floor-to-head opening, and you need to consider its construction, not its finishes, as in it starts at the floor and it goes to a head. So there's two types of openings in a case like this. There's floor-to-head, and then there's cell-to-head, which would be a window. And then you think about it for use. Think about it by its use, not by its construction. So in terms of an opening, you're talking about a fire door, you're talking about a passage door, you're talking about a closet door. And what that lets you do is outline some basic door types. You might have 6 or 7 door types, and you just drag and drop them in and say, okay, these are closets, so I'm going to just quickly drop them in here. This is where a fire door needs to go, and you can quickly swap them out, and it makes it quicker to add information as the project moves forward. During design development, this is where these models start growing, and the information in them start to grow. So you're starting to modify and augment these elements to suit. And as different project and product decisions are made, you can take the component and update it. If you keep the same object name, all they have to do is reload it, and it's not going to change anything in their model. It'll automatically update as necessary. And it gives you the ability to supply actual design based on components. So if you put specific wall, floor, ceiling, and roof assemblies, you can design around them. Specific windows and doors, you can design around them. When you find out that something is a sliding door, you need to have, or a swing door, you need to have a specific amount of clearance on either side so it can open. And same holds for fixtures, casework, fittings, and furnishings. Also, you're working with the design team here to provide element selection assistance. So if they're looking at this and saying, well, we need to know what kind of door we need, a specifier, and the specifier in the knowledge manager kicks in and says, all right, well, you need to have an oak door with a sound transmission class of this, or you just need to have a sound transmission class of this in order for it to be soundproof the same way the walls are. So they can assist in making those decisions. Looking at the evolution, so in schematic design, we're looking at just an opening. During design, it becomes a door, and then as further decisions are made, you determine the handing of it. That may be all that's available at a given point. But as those decisions are made, you can just update the model and update it and update it and update it as necessary to suit the needs of the design team. And now, when you get into design development, as it goes through, you start massaging the information and spitting it back to the design team, and that's done with a series of schedules. You create a series of templated schedules inside the project that are based on different phases, and you can actually reuse these from one project to the next. So, in DD, for instance, you want to organize the information for the modeler, because that's the person that's going to be using this most frequently at this point in the project. They're the ones that are going to be staring at it all day. So you organize the information so they understand it. They may not know what master format numbers are, so you want to think about organizing it by location and by component, so that way they know how to find it and they know what it is and can find it quickly and update things as necessary and move things around. So by location, you're finding the components to manage and use. So if you need to find all of the doors in the first level or all of the doors in storage room B, you can do that. If you need to just find all of the doors, you can do that. It's a matter of setting up schedules so that people can find the information easily. Now, during construction documents, the information is really starting to get used for model analysis and development of the spec. So this is where all the information has pretty much been fleshed out through design development. And now you know everything that you need to know about the project in order to determine a set of specifications. And because the specifier is also the person that's managing this information, they can be the one that makes sure that the information that's in the model is the same that's in the spec, and they can harmonize the two. In addition, they can create what I'm kind of referring to as a tabular specification, for lack of a better term. And it's really just a series of attributes and values that you could look at in a spreadsheet to quickly determine what's in that project. And the knowledge manager may or may not generate that project manual. It may be something that they hand off to a spec writer to do. But it's my belief that they are the most apt person to do it. So during CD, now you're organizing the information for the specifier. So you want to think in terms of what they need and what they want. So you want to organize it by master format so that they can create the project manual, they can create tabbed specifications, and they can manage the information. So they can see exactly what's in the project. What are the components that are in there that need to go into a spec? What are the finishes? What are the performance aspects that need to go into the specification? So it's organizing that information so that the specifier can use it downstream. And during bidding, the model is used as a control, so you can do active specifications, and that's really apples to apples comparison. So if the model has the sound transmission classes and the U factors and the R values and all of the performance values used to select products, those become a benchmark, and you can actually just take a snapshot of the model and then use that as a control, drag and drop in alternates, and they'll show up in the schedule as alternates, and you can just sort of lay it out and say, here's the control, and here's what is specified, here's manufacturer A, B, and C, and here's how they stack up. So you can look at it and say, this one doesn't meet it, we can delete them. This one doesn't meet it, we delete them. But these three do. These are the three that are options. So you can go through it from there and really make informed decisions quickly. So, going back to our door, the evolution as it stands at the bidding phase, you're looking at the opening during schematic. It's an 0810 door during design development, 081400 during the CD phase, and as it gets to bid, we find that it's a flush wood door, and there's also 087100 door hardware that carries with it specific attributes. So, thinking about the evolution of this component, it's come a long way from just being an opening to actually listing all of the aspects of that door. What are the hinges? What's the slab? What's the frame? What are the different hardware components? So you really get to see everything that's in there. And which brings it into construction, and that actually lets you see exactly what's in that component. So it's an as-built door, if you will. So here I'll just kind of make this a little bit bigger. In here, each one of the components within the door is noted down to its exact properties and exact manufacturers. So, and all of those show up in a schedule so that way it can be used later. And then when you get into massaging the data, now you're looking at it in terms of the general contractor. You want it so the DC can look at this information very quickly and easily. So you're looking at it again by component. They want to be able to do quantity takeoffs. They want to think about it in terms of logistics and delivery, and they want to think about it in terms of schedules. How many of what are where, and that's really what's critical to them. So, putting that information and organizing it as such will let them be able to do that. And then post-construction, you get into facility management. So now what you're talking about is an as-built. The model's been completed, construction is done. Because this individual is a function of the owner, they take all of the information and they organize it so that you have everything that's necessary to organize and maintain the information for the long haul, for the life cycle of the project, or for the life cycle of the building. And it comes down to organizing that information and programming it in so that their facility management database can read it effectively. The nice thing is that all of the software packages allow you to export the information cleanly so that it can be imported into any sort of database, whether you're using Timberline or MS Project. All the information is a clean transfer. And then you get into massaging the data for facility management. You're organizing it by location, mainly because that's how a facility is organized. You have different floors and levels, and you have different rooms and different areas. So if you need to see all the components that are in testing room 2, you can see these are all of the components that are there. And you can quickly find them, select them, and look at the attributes associated with them. So the picture is that there are a lot of relationships and changes that need to occur throughout the project lifecycle. So design decisions that are made during schematic may or may not hold true during construction, and there's always going to be changes that go from one place to another to another to another. So if this needs to go here and this needs to go there, who's really going to be responsible for these relationships and changes that occur? There really needs to be an administrator that can do this. Otherwise, the information can get lost in the shuffle, or redundant work occurs throughout the project. So that said, the benefits of using a knowledge manager are really the single point of responsibility. You're homogenizing all of the project information with all of the project documentation. So everything associated with the projects, from the plans to the specs to the model, are all the same information. The knowledge manager has an expertise in product and systems, so they can act as that specifier, not just the spec writer, but the specifier who calls out products and systems when the design team has questions or needs more information. They understand not just what products are in there and what components are in there, but why they're there. And it builds upon the current role of the specifier, and it brings construction documents into this IPD process. And it gives the ability for components and assemblies, full components and assemblies, to be selected earlier in the design phase. So you can make informed decisions earlier and design around. So you're designing like a snowball rather than in a linear fashion where you just build it, design, and then select things all at once. And then it simplifies the content sourcing. Architects spend a lot of time creating and managing BIM content, and if an individual is responsible for that, it really takes that out of their hands so that they can focus on what they do best, and that's design. So why should a knowledge manager be used? Well, you're increasing the role and the responsibility of the specifier. He's an individual that's already on the project, so you can take the role of the specifier and merge it with a draftsman or BIM manager to create this high-powered individual that can manage all of this information. And they can also assume the responsibility of all of this information from the very beginnings all the way to the end. So there's a lot of compelling reasons to use a knowledge manager. It's just a matter of figuring out the best way to do it. Now, this doesn't mean that a knowledge manager has to be a function of the owner. An architect can hire a knowledge manager to deal with their project. A contractor can do it on their end, or the owner can do it as an overarching individual. It's a very scalable concept and a very scalable role that can fit any project depending on the delivery type. So some conclusions. Collaboration and communication improves through the knowledge manager coordination. You have an overarching individual that helps these people talk to each other. A qualified member of the project team should be assigned to manage all of the BIM information, whether it's a knowledge manager or it's getting some additional education for the BIM manager so they understand standards, formats, and the types of information that are necessary. Both the specifier or the BIM manager can both evolve to the knowledge manager. Either one can do it, or both can do it. And the IPD can be enhanced by bringing the knowledge manager or specifier's expertise directly into the model. And then additional education and cursory knowledge of BIM software can dramatically increase the value of the specifier to the design team. So that's really what it comes down to, are these kind of conclusions that I've come up with. we have a couple final comments as well. The PM can hire one as well. Exactly. Yeah. A project manager can do it. And another question is, how do we protect ourselves against errors in objects? Well, that comes down to how you protect yourselves against errors in specifications. You hire a specifier who knows what they're doing. And that's really what it comes down to, is having somebody who knows what they're doing it. And there's no other, really no other way to put it, is that as an architect, you have to hire the right people to do the job. As an owner, you have to hire the right architect to do the job. As an owner, you have to hire the right contractor to do the job. So it's finding the right people that can do this appropriately, and giving them the responsibilities. So the knowledge manager, just as a specifier or architect, would carry errors and omissions insurance to ensure to themselves that they and the architect that they are not going to have any errors, or that they will hold themselves responsible for those errors. And with that's the end of the presentation that I had. Does anybody have any additional questions? And another question is, assuming you hired a qualified specifier who picks a product and that the product has an error, E&O will not cover BIM errors because they were not created by said professional. Well, and that's where this singular individual takes on the responsibility of that content. So the knowledge manager and the specifier, they build into their E&O insurance that they're responsible for this content. Yes, the slides are going to be available for downloads. They take responsibility for other people's content. It doesn't necessarily have to be other people's content. They can source the content out themselves, create it. The point being is that a knowledge manager will be the individual that creates and provides the content to the architect. So they're taking responsibility for their own content. So just as a specifier might download a manufacturer's guide specification to use in their project manual and modify it to suit the project, they're only taking on the responsibility that they, there's hopes that they have reviewed the information themselves. And so in some ways, yes, they're taking on the responsibility of other people's content, but it flows downstream, where the architect hires good specifiers and the specifier hires good content people. So it's all hiring the right people to do the job, and that's really what it comes down to. So with that, if there are no other questions, I think I want to turn this back over to Roger. I think there were some closing things that you had. Rob?
Oh, yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that Roger had. I'm sorry, I thought you were saying Roger.
No, I did. I can't hear Roger, so I'm not sure if he's still on the call or not. But it looks like we have a few more items coming in. In the present contract formats, that's okay. Let me just field these. Specifier typically works under architects. Workload changes to holding the spec, mostly to protect the architectural design, not necessarily for best performance of the owner. And and this is where something like this can rattle cages, and I expect this to kind of throw a hand grenade and make some changes potentially. As the industry becomes more BIM aware, the CM, the AE, the PM, and the owner may have more BIM managers. How do you see this? How do you see the knowledge manager coordinating this? And that's where the knowledge manager has the ability to act as the overarching CMA, if you will, that is taking on the responsibility of all of these individuals. And it's a great source information for me, since we begin to design as a prime design leader in and out contract. We must coordinate with architects, consultants, and others. So there's a comment there. To the best of my knowledge, a non-professional cannot buy E&O insurance, nor can the owner. Well, and that's where this is where this is not something that's is going to happen overnight. Just as 2, 3, 4 years ago, there's no way an insurance company would allow an architect to hand over a BIM model. That's changing. So there's changes that are occurring in the industry, and I would hope to see either some sort of professional certification for this in order for that individual to become bondable or insurable against errors and omissions, or finding ways where responsibilities can be shifted or joint in order to make this role viable. So with that said, we're coming up to the end. Roger, do you have any closing comments?
I think you covered a lot, Bob, and I think you accomplished the goal of putting something provocative out there. So,
well, I always like
provocative
to do
in a thought-provoking way, just to be clear. So,
well, I like to put the hand grenade on the table and pull the pin, but I'm not necessarily going to leave the room. I like putting new concepts and ideas out there. Is this something that is definitely going to happen? No, but this is my idea. It's an idea that I have, and it's a method that it could potentially work. And just one closing comment. What is the construction market's awareness of the role of the knowledge manager? How many KMs exist as of today? Any specific training offering? And again, this is all new stuff. So to my knowledge, from a comment that was made earlier, there's a very similar role that the VA is using, and that is very similar to what we're talking about here. And I'm looking to find some case studies to actually put together a proof of concept and essentially list this as a viable service. I mean, my firm is going to start offering this as a service in the coming months, but it's unclear as to whether it's going to be a service that's under the architect, under the owner, or both the architect and the contractor at the behest of the owner. So it's unclear as to how it would happen.
This may have come up, but I think the IPD documents from AIA reference some individual who handles some of these duties and responsibilities, and there's definitely, it's not real clear, I don't believe, where that resides yet. So I think that's a place to look for how this starts to fit and get built into what's going on out there. And I guess
right.
I want to make sure we get on the table when our next meeting is going to be and how we're going to pick up on this theme of knowledge and where it comes from in the next meeting.
Sure. Yeah. Really, what it comes down to is that there's a direct correlation between, as I hope you were able to see here, there's a direct correlation between the information in specifications and the information in BIM components, and in order for there to be a real close connection, there needs to be good content out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to some different content providers. Next month I believe we're going to be talking to Autodesk Seek, and get a sense of what they're doing in terms of information and content and manufacturer components and generic components, all this information, and see what they're doing. We're also going to have different people from probably from McGraw-Hill, possibly from Reed, Smart BIM, maybe CAD Details. We're just looking around and getting different people, and I'll probably close it up with talking about how ARCAD is managing the information. I don't want to take all of the sessions here, but I thought this would be a useful one.
So Bob, since this is such a seems like an interesting topic, maybe it would be nice to go onto the forum and just post a short statement about this to get a thread going and see if we could get some dialogue continued. And the other thing I'd like to say is when we start to look at these different providers of information, it'd be great to find a way to capture the experiences of people that are using those tools, and get some of the members of this group to tell the others of their experiences, what they like, what they don't like, what works. So maybe we can use the forum for that purpose. We have the forum up, Rob, or do we have to use the LinkedIn forum? I'm not sure which one is actually working right now, but guess we'll sort that out between now and the next meeting, which we're projecting is going to be on the 18th of February.
Yes, 18th of February. So with that said,
keep the dialogue going. We'll see you next month.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for. Sorry, I was just trying to answer a question. I appreciate everybody coming out, and thank you everybody. If you have any questions, I'm at robert@sumexdesign.com. Let me just put that up here. I'm always happy to talk about this. I'm in the process of actually putting together an outline and writing a book about knowledge management. So I'm always open to different ideas and different concepts for making this happen.
And we're going to post a PDF of this somewhere, Bob?
Yes, I'm going to, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to PDF this and send it over to Rob so he can post it up on the site.
Great.
And thanks again everybody for coming out on a Thursday. I know we usually do this on Friday, but I actually have somewhere to be that I cannot change tomorrow. So again, we'll be in touch. We'll see you all on February 18th.